Disclaimer. Any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do. Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. And today I welcome Anders Hansen, and we're going to be talking around some very interesting topics that I'm excited about talking about today. So Anders is the internationally recognized illusionist and seven-figure CEO of Real Magic LLC, who has revolutionized personal transformation by combining 20 plus years of quantum physics study with professional stage magic. As Bob Proctor's mentorship protege, Anders co-created the Secrets to Real Magic program and has helped over 10,000 entrepreneurs break through mental limitations to create extraordinary results. His award-winning Real Magic Live experience makes abstract concepts tangible through live illusions, generating 12 million plus in revenue and proving transformation can be engaging, magical, and exponentially effective. So welcome to the show today, Anders. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Johnny. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. I love how you dive deep into those concepts around self-image and confidence. It's really what goes to the heart of everyone's results. So for everyone listening, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review for Johnny and his great podcast. I left mine today, and it's the easiest way for him to get in front of even more people with these valuable episodes.
Appreciate that, Anders. No, thank you. At the heart, what I do is big about image, and I know you're creating some magic out there, as we could say. So I'd love to know, what is Real Magic? How did you come up for the name of that? And maybe your journey into why you created that.
That's a great question. It actually arose the day when I met Bob Proctor, and we sat down and talked about what I did and what I wanted to do. And I told him I had been producing magic and illusions for 20 years, but that I wanted to start teaching how we actually deceive ourselves in a new framework. And he invited me to speak on his stage at his event. And the next day I sat down with a friend, and my friend said, "What you just did was real magic. You actually help people change their life with magic. So why don't you call the concept Real Magic?" And so that's where it originated.
Oh, wow. I love that. Real Magic. Cool. And how did you, you said you met Bob Proctor. So how did that come about?
I did. So I was at a point in my life, probably the lowest point I've ever found myself in 2016. I had just quit my career in magic, flying to cruise ships and doing these big shows. I'd crashed with my health, so I was burned out. And financially, I was really struggling. I was owing $50,000 in debt. My blood test said I was sick. My partner and I had an eviction notice on our door in our little apartment in Las Vegas. So things weren't really looking well. But I had studied personal development for a while. I had read that, I can decide on a new trajectory and what I really wanted. And I started asking myself, what do I really want? Things can't get any worse. So what do I really want out of life? And I really had a deep desire to bring together those two worlds, personal development and entertainment, but I had no idea how to do it. But I had learned, if I'm going to learn from someone, I'm going to learn from the best in the world. So I set that intention in the fall of 2016, that I was going to learn from the best in the world in personal development. And I just started using the tools that I had access to and that I was aware of at the time to really prime myself into a different mindset, to be in harmony with that idea. And New Year's Eve 2016, my partner said he was going to go to work that evening. He was working at Louis Vuitton at Bellagio in Las Vegas at the time. And it was unusual for me to hear him say he was going to work voluntarily because he didn't like his work. So in that moment, my intuition kicked in and told me to pick him up, but pick him up an hour early. So that didn't make any sense. My intuition was sort of debating with my rational mind. And I think many of us find ourselves in those situations often where our gut feeling tells us one thing and the intellect tells us something else. But I'm grateful I went with my gut feeling, because I went an hour early, I parked the car, and I started walking around, and I ran smack into Bob Proctor in the reception at the Bellagio 16. And I felt in the moment I had won the lottery of the universe. Then the little shy Danish guy in me said, "I can't disturb the guy, he's really busy." Wayne Gretzky's quote was on the other side of me on my shoulder saying, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." And so I was like, darn, I got to make an introduction. And I did. And I said, "Mr. Proctor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want you to know how big of an influence you've had in my life," because I had listened to his meditations over the years. I've read his books. And he was a master at reading energy. And he was like, "Who are you?" And I said, "I used to be a magician and now I want to do what you do." And he's like, magic and personal development. I've never heard that before. Do you got time for lunch tomorrow? I'm like, let me look at my busy schedule. Yeah, I think I've got time. So we met for lunch January 1st, 2017. And that became the start of a great friendship and great mentorship. And naturally that changed my entire trajectory in life.
Wow, that's amazing. Like how you went with your intuition and you like bumped into him in that moment. Cool. So yeah, like how did it go from there when you met with Bob? Like what kind of went on from there?
Well, he started where most people ought to start. What do you really want? Most people start with what they have. And what I had was terrible. Nothing worked. My finances were terrible. My health was terrible. Nothing worked. But he started in the other end. He started, what do you really want? And he goes, how would your life change if, let's say, just 1 million popped into your account tomorrow? And I said, I don't know how to answer the question. He goes, that's not uncommon because most people never entertain the idea long enough. And then he asked me a question that no person in 20 years had asked me as a professional illusionist. He says, how do you create an illusion? And I thought, well, I go as far as I can in my mind, obviously. I go to my imagination. I come up with something that is perceived to be very impossible. And then I work my way backwards. And he goes, why don't you take your own medicine in this context for a change? He had me, because I never applied the same philosophy to my life. I applied it as a professional illusionist all day long. I had done it for 20 years, but I'd never stop up and ask myself what I wanted out of life. I went with what I thought I could get. And then he started teaching me that day. He said, Anders, there's 3 kinds of goals. There's A goals, B goals, and C goals. An A goal is what you know how to do. It's what you did last year. There's no inspiration. There's no growth. There's a B goal is what you think you can do. Now you stretch that 10% increase, 15% increase. It's incremental growth. It's what we think we can do. Now we're really stretching. If all these things fall into place, then I can do that. And he goes, most people bounce from A to B. There's no support in B, so they go back to A. They bounce back and forth their whole life. He goes, no, what we really need to do is set a C goal. And that is a wants goal that originates in your imagination. Like you create magic. What do you really want? And I said, well, if I can have anything, I just want more money. I want to create more freedom. I want to grow. And he said, how is more? How much is more? If you give you $1, you have more. It's like, that's not what I meant. And then he started teaching again. He said, your subconscious mind is 100% deductive. You need to give it clear instruction. How much is more? He goes, if you can have anything you want, let me try and stretch your mind a little bit. What if you in 1 month earned the same as you had earned the entire last year? I said, well, I don't know how. He goes, that's the illusion. Most people don't know how, so they don't think they can. And that's not true. He says, you can go to 2 resources in life. You can go to theology or science. Both tells us we have infinite potential. So let's try one more time. What do you really want? I said, then I want to turn my annual income into my monthly income. He goes, bingo. That's a C goal. That's a wants goal. But I didn't think I could do it. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't have confidence in me and I could do that. I had no confidence. So Johnny, I believed he believed it. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe I could do it, but I believed he believed I could do it. So my belief in his belief was just a little tad stronger than my own disbelief in myself. And he goes, if you just do exactly what I'm telling you, you can have this and more. Still, I didn't believe it, but I started doing what he was telling me. And one of the core aspects of my journey was self-image, which is why I'm so grateful we're having this dialogue today, because it should be in the hands of everybody. Self-image, our emotional conception of ourselves. I went from $40,000 a year, which was the most I had ever earned at the time when I met Bob. And I was embarrassed when he was asking me. He asked, how much have you ever earned in a year? And I was like, I didn't feel good about saying that. I was embarrassed. I was struggling. I was working hard. Nothing really worked. And he goes, I don't care what the number is, Anders, but you got to tell me. It shows me how you're programmed. And when I know how you're programmed, I can help you to what you want. That made a lot of sense too. And so 11 months later, I had earned $750,000 in 11 months. It was such a shocking result. I had a hard time understanding what happened to me because I didn't think I was better than anyone. It wasn't like my arrogance had shot through the roof at all. It was just a different kind of consciousness and a different healthy respect for the power that we all represent. And then he taught me how to change the self-image, and everything shifted. So the point here that he was making to me and that I want to stress here is you can take all the skills, all the expertise, everything that has made you you today, and you can apply that very successfully towards something that is maybe slightly different, but in a new way with the right self-image. But Bob always said it takes the right amount. If you have too much, you're too arrogant and you don't think you need to learn. If you have too little confidence, you don't think you can. So it's that sweet spot in between, and that's the key. So that was a long answer, but I hope that makes sense.
No, that's a great answer and some great like insight. I like that, the ABC goals, in particular. So yeah, like a lot of us get caught on the. I guess that there might have been a part of you that was like, how am I going to do it though? Like, what am I going to do step by step? And I'd love to know kind of Bob's approach to that and your approach to that.
Absolutely. So the how is where most people stumble. They actually start entertaining the how before they get clear on what. And so they start bringing down their goal to match, again, what they think they can do, what their skill set gives them an opportunity to act on, or something else. And that's a mistake. So we got to separate the two completely, the journey and the goal itself, because the truth is, Johnny, the journey and the how will be revealed once you log on to what it is. We function on frequencies. We're an energetic being. Everything in this universe is energy. That was one of Bob's main teachings, and one of the things that I really resonated with, that everything has a frequency to it. And an idea is a spiritual seed that also has a place, if not on a physical plane yet, then at least energetically. So if I can connect with it energetically and mentally, now I can learn to think from the goal, from the frequency that equals this. That's the key. Most people think of the frequency. They think of the goal as something down the line, down the road, next year, in 5 years. But when you successfully are able to change your vibration to match the one who's already there, and instead of asking, how can I? Asking, now that I'm here, how did I get here so easily and effortlessly? When you bring gratitude in for the outcome, your intuition is going to start speaking to you. See, your intuition is one of our 6 mental tools. We have imagination, intuition, will, reason, memory, and perception. They're perfect. When we arrived on the planet, we were gifted mental tools. The animal kingdom around us were gifted instinct. We have those mental tools that makes us human. Now, the problem is we have never learned how to use them. So there's confusion in our life. But intuition is what enables us to pick up vibration from the universe and from other people. It is said that when I pray, I send a message to God or the universe. But when I'm utilizing my intuitive factor, the God of the universe is speaking to me. And that's the way to create quantum leaps. It's to attach yourself to an outcome first, mentally, emotionally. And you will find that the body on a physical plane will change its vibration. And there's a step process to it. So this is a little diagram that Bob used to teach from that I love as well. So if you're listening to this, I would encourage you to find Johnny on YouTube and find this in a video format so you can actually follow along. But he said the biggest circle is your mind. The small circle is your body. Top part is your conscious intellectual mind. That's the mind, side of the mind that school focuses on. There's the subjective emotional mind where our programming is that actually defines our behavior 95 to 98% of the time. And this little thing here, the body just acts on whatever is resident here. And so we start choosing new concepts. We have free will. No one can force us to think something we haven't chosen or accepted. So I can build a new concept with my imagination and my willpower. When I hold on to that image, it changes the vibratory rate of my body. We call it feeling. We say, I feel good. I feel more in alignment. We use the word feeling to describe our conscious awareness of the vibration that my body is in. So now, and there was a Russian photographer in the 1930s that came up with Kirlian photography, as he called it, and it actually was a way to photograph the aura, the energy leaving the body. And he found that depending on the thoughts we think and emotions we entertain, the density and color of that energy changes that's leaving the body. That's the frequency. And that frequency defines how the body acts. It also defines what we attract. But if I can place myself in the energy of already being there, I will start moving into that vibration. I'm going to have flashes of inspiration. My intuition is going to start talking to me. I will feel inspired. Where does that word come from? In spirit, inspired. One with the creative flow flowing to and through us. That's what I did back then. Meeting Bob, I had no idea what I had just done. But I had been emotionally involved in the idea of working with the best in the world for a period of time. And naturally, I run into him on the physical plane. For me, it was a miracle. For him, it was everyday occurrence. I said, like, how can this happen? The odds are 1 to a gazillion. 2 people that don't know each other can be in the same spot, on the same place, at the same time. What are the odds of that? I was flabbergasted. He took it as of course, because The physical is not where things are, it's where things end up. So our job is to stay in an energetic alignment. We're energetic beings. And so that's a long answer, I know, but I feel like it warrants that explanation for the listener to really understand. We got to take it to a different level. We got to dig into it and really get it at a deeper level. But once we do, everything starts to shift. And again, it's not arrogance. The strongest self-image is not arrogance. It's just, it's embracing the energy that we represent. And there's plenty of it. 20 million kilowatt hours per pound of potential energy in the hydrogen atoms of our body. If all that energy could be utilized, we could light the whole city up that we live in over a week. And people run around and say, I don't have any energy. What they don't have is a clear goal. Because if they had the clear goal, their body would release the energy. We're a dynamo for energy.
I like what you said about what the physical, where it ends up. How can someone, this may sound like quite a pessimistic question, but I'm also thinking of like that individual gets that challenge in the way, but how can someone stay in that energy? So say, for example, like you, for example, you mentioned about being debt. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And then suddenly you're like 700,000 plus you're accumulating from there, basically. How can someone stay in the energy of like using a money as an example, like I've got a load of money, but then they go and they look at their bank account, or suddenly they're hit by some bills. How do they stay in that energy?
Great question. So it really comes down to one's ability to what I call prime ourselves mentally, emotionally, and physically. You know, we give those tools away for free because I feel everybody can benefit from learning how to prime themselves. It comes up over and over, and it's such a valid question because most people struggle is that we are conditioned to live through the senses. We're earthbound. Since we were little kids, we were taught, you know, listen to what I'm telling you. Can't you see what I'm showing you? Like we live from the outside in. We actually undervalue the mental tools, and the physical world outside takes precedence over our inner mental state. It should be the other way, but it isn't. It's natural to live from the inside out. We're a creative being, so that's a natural state to be in. We're created in our creator's image, and if our creator is creative, we should be by definition also creative. We should be creating more. We should be expressing better health, more income, better relationships. That's why we are here. Most people are programmed the other way. That's why so many people are struggling. They live from the outside in. So the first thing to recognize, Johnny, is to understand that we have those mental tools first and foremost. If I don't know that I have them, if I don't know what they are, how am I going to develop them? So the first step is to do that. And then prime ourselves. Be in harmony emotionally. So Feeling is the Secret. It's a great book by Neville Goddard. Feeling is the Secret, short book, but really powerful. So you will find this, you'll resonate with this, I'm sure. We experience these nuts all day long, maybe in our stomach, you know, physical reality takes over and we see there's a knot. It's pretty obvious. There's a knot. It's caused by something outside. It's the bank account. It's something else that's not very, very good to look at. But when I change my feeling state, this knot all of a sudden becomes very, let's say, malleable, and we can actually get rid of it pretty quickly. So the whole key is to stay rooted in an emotional state that is different than what I'm experiencing with my senses. Now, that doesn't mean challenges don't arise. There's another one. There's another knot. It feels real. You can pull it's a real knot. It's a real challenge. I can see it. I can recognize it. But the more I change my state in that moment, the more I don't let the emotion control me, the more I control the situation. And little by little, that knot again dissolves and becomes insignificant. And that's what I call real magic.
I love it.
So we teach that in you can find on YouTube, I have a gratitude meditation. It's totally free, but it's easy to use and it helps change the state. But it's easy for a person to fall prey to the evidence of the senses, the bills, circumstances, conditions. Our greatest job is to what I call disassociate emotionally. It doesn't mean that I'm putting the head in the sand like an ostrich and ignoring me out of the problems. That's not it. It's just not getting emotionally involved. It's choosing to get emotionally involved in the goal, in where I'm going, and not in current conditions and circumstances. That's what I did as an unconscious competent back then. I had no idea what I was doing, but I recognized, like I said before, a blood test that said I was sick, an eviction notice on my door, and $1,000 stupid debt. That was my reality. That was my starting point. And most people will say, well, it's just too bad you can't. But somehow I didn't let that idea slip into my mind.
So kind of dealing with things practically, but not getting emotionally hooked, because you said about not like burying your head in the sand, because if
That's
you've
it.
got bills and stuff, there's still, I guess, some practical action, but it's not
That's it.
living in scarcity.
That's exactly it. And we can use perception here. Perception is a mental tool. It's one of our 6 mental tools. It's based on the law of opposites. The law of opposites decrees that there's 2 sides to everything. You couldn't have plus without minus, right? You couldn't have up without down. You couldn't have hot without cold. You couldn't have rich without poor. You couldn't have an inside without an out and outside. There's 2 sides to everything. One-sided pancake still doesn't exist, right? So the law of opposites decrees that if I can become aware of a challenge, by that definition, I must be able to become aware of the solution. It's not 2 different things. It's 2 different sides of the same thing. If I were to hold this paper up and I say there's something written on this paper, right, Johnny? You would say there isn't. And the more I would say there's something written on the paper, the more you would say there isn't, and the more you would be convinced that you are right. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I would turn it around and you would see there's something written on the paper, and I'll go, well, that's a cute little thing. Well, it's an illustration. From my point of view, there is. From your point of view, there isn't. So the same 2 things can be true. Well, that must apply to my challenge then. So if it's a real big challenge, there must be, by that definition, a huge opportunity in it. Little challenge, little opportunity. Now, I know that's making a lot of mental gymnastics for a lot of people. It might be hard to follow. But if I just, in the moment something negative happens, if I can just say, that's good, this is good, just say it out verbally. That feels dumb because it's not obviously not good. I'm attached to the victim mentality and this is terrible. But if I can just say, this is good, I start breaking the pattern before it becomes an emotion. I can get so good at saying, that's good, what's the good in it? And now I invite my perception over to the plus side. It doesn't mean it's not a situation I don't have to solve. I've solved plenty of terrible situations looking at it from the outside. But like my mentor said, a successful person is not a person without problems. They're just a person who learned to solve the problems. So it's flexing that perception muscle more often that enables us to take control back of our life. Because the truth is, we don't have a resource problem. We have a perception problem. We don't have a we don't have a relationship problem. We have a perception problem. It's the way we look at it. Wayne Dyer, good friend of Bob's, he often said, when I change the way I look at something, the thing I look at changes. So my job is not to try and change the situation per se. My job is to change the way I look at the situation. That changes everything. I started feeling so grateful for having a blood test that said I was sick. I was feeling so grateful for being down and out because I realized when I dig myself out of this hole, I can help millions do the same. And we already helped 10,000 plus, and we're just getting started.
That's awesome. The way you look at it, definitely, because you can't. I think most of us, I've definitely been in that boat of like, I wish this could change. I wish this could change, rather than the perception.
Exactly. We're living in the richest times. There's opportunities everywhere, but most people are married to their lack and limitation identity. So the paradigm and the subjective mind will adhere to the challenges because that's the familiar. That's what I'm used to focusing on. But retraining my mind to start focusing on the unknown, the flip side of the coin, is where the secret really is. And there's great track record on the that's good concept. Bob Proctor's mentor, Earl Nightingale, really was the one that started the self-help industry. And he was good friends with Clement Stone back then, and he was one of the richest men. He was actually the richest man in the U.S. at the time and back in the 50s. And Earl Nightingale asked him, "What is your secret to success?" And he said, "That's good. No matter what happens, I just say that's good. Regardless of how terrible it is on the surface, I say that's good." And Earl was like, "Yeah, exactly. Wow." And he's like, "I'm going to create a program called That's Good." So Earl Nightingale created a program just with the title, That's Good. It served me so well. It will serve you so well. It will serve everybody listening. Break the pattern on a conscious level, just saying out loud. If it's something you drop on the floor and you have food all over, that's good. Gives me an opportunity to tidy up even more. Our little dog the other day had a little accident in the living room. Say, that's good. It gives me an opportunity to care even more for her. I had an unfortunate thing happen a few years ago. Somebody stole a lot of money from me. And I said, that's good. I'm glad it was just 100,000 and not 1 million. So that's good. FBI came and knocked on the door and said, "Do you know that person?" I said, I knew that person. I don't know them anymore, but I knew them and I know they did some bad stuff. And they're like, "Yeah, So karma took care of it. And I said, well, that's terrible. You lost 100,000. I'm just grateful I didn't lose more. I can always earn more. So there's that. No matter what happens, it's good. It's there to teach us something. So we become better or we become bitter. There's two directions. We can always choose better, and we choose a higher level of consciousness by growing and by not reacting as much as we used to do.
I like these switches and the way you're seeing things, and what, going back to your point about perception, for things that like really like build up maybe in the body emotionally, like, because I know that can be a big thing for people. Do you find it's useful to release that, or do you kind of just try and reframe things most of the time?
So it depends. If it's deep trauma release, it's a very effective way, and there's therapists that do that. Our approach is looking in the windshield and letting ourselves be guided by the goal, and then changing the old by replacing it with the new. And we design that self-image from the goal. So we're not trying to get rid of something. We're trying to embrace a new identity so the old can no longer exist. Our conscious mind is 100% deductive. So let's say I want to lose weight. Well, I will find that weight again, the same way I find my car keys when I lose them. It sounds so obvious, but it's a simple concept. If I'm trying to get rid of debt, I'll attract more debt because my focus is on debt. Same in business. If I am not more focused on revenue producing activity, I will fall prey to get rid of liabilities, for instance. So we want to treat the subjective as a garden. You can plant anything. You can plant a really toxic poison and a rose next to each other, and they will grow just as great, depending on whichever one you water. And so this is the same with this. We want to start nurturing a healthy, conscious respect for ourselves. And it's not arrogance. Most people confuse a lot of confidence with a lot of arrogance, or a healthy self-image with a lot of arrogance. Healthy self-image is a healthy, conscious respect for the energy that we represent. And the stronger self-image we build, the more we recognize divinity and perfection in other people. And then we can help bring it to the surface in their life. So we're not trying to get rid of something. We're trying to embrace the new. That's our approach, and it's worked very well. We had a business owner who recently went from 100,000 in a month to over 1 million in a month in a year and a half. Now she has a line of investors ready to buy her entire business, which is crazy from where she was. Like 30 employees, everything is flowing. Like a year and a half, she's achieved more in a year and a half that most people would dream of in 50 years. And then that's just another example. We had somebody that was diagnosed with MS, and they were being told that they were supposed to be tired and supposed to be this and that and all these symptoms. And she came to us with the goal of wanting to get rid of her MS, understandably so. It's a terrible disease. It affects you on every level. And she had a little family and kids, and she kept saying, I want to get rid of this. But I said, what do you really want? What are you running towards? Well, turns out she loved horseback riding, and she wanted to win the Danish championship in this specific horse category. And you could see her face light up when she talked about this goal. And I said, that becomes the goal. So she embodied the identity of winning that race. And today, doctors can't find the MS. It went dormant in her system. No symptoms anymore. Completely perfect. And she's now built her own coaching business because she's going to teach somebody else who has had the same thing do what she did. But that's just another example of how dramatic a shift we can experience when we start running towards what we want as opposed to away from what we don't. That was one of the big insights as well on my journey.
I remember you just like reminded me of seeing the film The Think and Grow Rich. They made it into a movie. Bob was basically the star of the show, talking through it, and I remember him saying, getting out of debt is a bad goal. Yeah.
It's a terrible goal.
What do you really want?
Terrible goal. And I was there in the beginning. I remember him asking me as part of that early dialogue, what do you really want? Well, I just want to earn $17,000. And he goes, why is that? Well, I had this debt. If I just earn 17, some of it will be gone. And he's like, that's a terrible goal. And so, yeah, we want to run towards what we want. And I also want to say, when it comes to self-image, just a strong self-image should not be a goal. It's not a goal in and of itself. We need to create a tangible, measurable outcome in our life, whether it's health, wealth, happiness, something that's tangible and measurable, something we really want. That's C goal, because it takes work. And if I don't have something I really want, then doing the work on a daily basis, a little bump in the road and we're back to where we were. So it does take that clearly defined C goal. And now the work on the self-image begins.
Yeah, I was curious. I was going to ask you about goals as well. Like in this day and age, there's so much information, so many people advertising things and influences, and there's the parents, there's the education system. It can get a little bit confusing actually what we do want. Is that something you help people with, getting that clarity?
100%. We are mostly influenced by the people closest to us. It's often said that we're the average of the top 5 people we spent the most time with. And I believe that's true. And I also believe that it does take a certain awareness and some education to break out of what I call the mass hypnosis trap. There's really 7 levels to human awareness as we develop ourselves to the goals that we desire. And the first level is fight or flight. It's animalistic consciousness, it's instinct, it's pure reaction. That's how we arrived on the planet. Then we move on to the next awareness level, which is mass consciousness. This is where we fall in line and do what our parents tells us. It's where we start following people around us, our friends in school. And our biggest desire as a young kid is to fit in. Is just to fit into the group. That's our biggest desire and deepest longing at that time. Now, unfortunately, most people don't move very far beyond that. They look to people around them, and then a job opportunity comes along, and a friend says, "Why don't you come work here? It's great pay." And you go, "Okay." And then we go do that. Or we're influenced by somebody advising us in school about the next step or whatever. Most people spend more time thinking about what they're going to wear for a Christmas party than they do thinking about the direction in their life, because we're so influenced by the mass hypnosis trap. Media, people around us, the feed on social media, and all of that adds to it. Now, the third level is that desire. There's something within us that is seeking expression with and through us. That's what makes us want to set goals. There's that impulse of growth in us, as well as everywhere else in nature. There's the same impulse. And so as we start developing and listening to what our soul calls for, we move up the ladder to awareness level called the individual. Now I have to look at, what am I here to? What makes me tick? What makes me unique in this world? Do I have the bravery and the courage to actually listen and do what feels right? That takes an enormous amount of courage when you're surrounded by people who don't understand you. I mean, for me in school, I was so busy blending in. I did not fit in. I felt so different on all levels. I mean, everything was just so uncommon for me. I felt different, and I was trying to fit in. Most people choose the path in life based on that. But then they have that little voice inside. We get better at listening to it. We arrive to a place called discipline. That's giving ourselves a command and following it. That's getting really clear on what we want, following direction, receiving good coaching or whatever it might be to keep ourselves on track. Once we start doing things in a certain way every day, we start seeing a difference in results. We start learning something. That is, now we're way up here in awareness. Learning and experience goes hand in hand. We've been taught in school, if I can memorize the book, I've learned something. Well, that's an illusion. We've memorized something. Learning is taking the concept, integrating the concept, acting on the concept, changing the result. The feedback and change of result back to the senses is learning. And that takes us to the highest level, which is mastery. Now I'm in complete control of myself and my results. But for me to arrive here, as you can tell, it requires me to break out of the mass hypnosis trap. And it doesn't mean we're judging our friends and family. We're just starting to question their results. And when they give us advice, does it come from awareness or does it come from a repeated opinion? So when our uncle, who's behind on all his installment payments, gives us advice on finances, probably should skip the advice. Or when the doctor, who's 500 pounds too heavy, gives us advice on health, probably should skip that. And that's when I learned, if you're going to learn from someone, learn from people who've demonstrated by the results that they know what they're talking about and do exactly as they tell you. That's what I did with Bob, and that's what changed everything. But it did require me to let go of friends and sometimes family members that did not understand me. They thought I was crazy. Who are you to think you're going to change your life around like that? You see, people don't resist change, Johnny, if it's their choice, but they resist being changed. And the moment you break out of the mold and charge a new course, they have to get used to a new version of you, and it wasn't their choice. It's not that they're bad people, but they will do and say anything to get you to forget it because they have to get used to a new version of you, and that's uncomfortable. They may have abandoned their dreams along the way, so for them to see you going for yours is a very uncomfortable realization sometimes. When you change your self-image, they're going to go, who do you think you are? Who do you know? Well, in fact, I think I'm infinite potential in human form. Thank you. Leads to a different kind of conversation. But so yeah, the environment has everything to do with it. I remember I had a family member that I had to cut ties with. It was hard. She had become a second mom to me. She was very close to me. But I realized I was taking on all her fear, all her judgments onto myself. And every time I'd seen her, I would have this stomach ache and I would be feeling weird. And I made a decision. I realized I'm letting myself be influenced by somebody whose ideas aren't very healthy at that point in time. 3 months later, after getting more in control of my own energy, my own space, my own frequency, I run into Bob. And I don't think it was an accident. I think, in fact, our success has more to do with what we let go of in our life than what we're actually taking on the plate. Now, that doesn't mean we should be a hermit and don't see anybody, but we do need to release some people and some conditions out of our life for sure.
I want to ask you, about goals. We talked about seagulls earlier, just going back to that, and thinking like, what do you really want? For you, was there any of this kind of like milestone goals along the way, or is it just operating from where you are there? So, for example, someone's like, oh, I'd love to make 100K in a month, but they've never made 10. Is it like, for you, was it like looking at how do you make 10? In that example, 100K, or in another area of life?
It's a great question, Johnny, and it comes up often, actually. You see, most people, we are linear thinkers, many of us, and we would think growth as a linear thing. That's common because we are taught to have the plan, to have the logic behind it, to back it up and all of that.
Sure.
But it does impede our progress in a very specific way. Because when you set a needs goal based on the first milestone, there's not going to be that much growth attached to it, first and foremost. And you won't be as inspired. So it doesn't mean you should just put 10 zeros on there for the numbers' sake. But we do need to choose something that feels out of bounds. There's really 3 criteria. We set the goal, first and foremost, not even to get it. We set the goal to experience the growth that it comes with. So the whole purpose of a goal is growth. That's the first criteria. 2, it's got to be something we really want. If you really want 10,000 a month and you've never earned more than, let's say, 2 or 3, that's a great goal. It's a great growth goal. And you can live more of your dreams with 10. Great. Or it's 100. It's not even the number. It's just as easy to earn 100 a month as it is to earn 10. It's just 2 different awareness levels. But anyways, it needs to be something you really want. Want is the prerequisite. And 3, you cannot know how to get there. You can't know it.
Ooh.
If you knew how, you would have a plan. And man, are we proud of our plan. And we got the plan and it's printed in colors. The moment it's printed out, it's obsolete. The universe is organic. Our linear thinking impedes us. We think linearly. Universe is organic. So I would always advise a person to not think linear about it. Latch on to what you want. 100% latch on to what you want. I mean, how did we get to the moon? We didn't get to the moon because Werner von Braun, at the time, the space engineer, JFK asked Werner von Braun what it would take to get to the moon and back. And he said, the will to do it. He could have asked him, do we have the funds for it? Do we have the studies that proves we can do this? And he didn't do that. He just said, the will to do it. And it's the same with our goals. We're on our way to Mars not too long because somebody made a decision that is what we're going to do. That person is operating with the exact same mental tools as all of us. Same potential, different form, same potential. So I would advise anybody listening to latch on to what they really want. Life is precious. We are infinite potential in human form. I believe it's our duty to go for what we really want. But I understand the question, and it's unfortunately, most people let their progress be impeded by setting needs goals. We want to latch on to what we want. And you have to be able to, if it's a number, if it's a finance goal, you have to be able to translate the number to meaning. Otherwise, it's just numbers on a piece of paper. You've got to get clear on how that will change your life. Where are you going to donate? What are you going to build? What are you going to experience? What are you going to give? Like, the meaning behind it is important.
I love that. I think that's a really powerful kind of way of approaching it, because a lot of us think, okay, I'll do that, and that. I remember thinking, like, I know the goals I've set in my life, like, I always had this vision in my head of, like, being on, like, California beach, of, like, all, like, my community. And then it's like, I even experienced it, like, a few months ago, and it's like, oh, I didn't see that way coming.
That's it.
Meet someone amazing, go have all these like new friends, and it's just like, I thought I'd have to, and it's like me a few years ago to be like, thought I had to do this, and it's like, there you go, and it's from feeling good. It was like, it's quite interesting.
There you go.
Key, I think I've realized.
Well, you just put words to the entire creative process. That's exactly the key. The greatest changes in my life occurred when I had no idea how, but when it was something I really wanted. It's the universe's job. There's a creative energy we're surrounded by that will respond to our frequency. That things will fall into place in ways you could never calculate if you tried with your own intellect. And that's the key. Bob always used to say, one person in harmony with that energy is always on the winning side.
I love that. So powerful, rather than trying to get in their head, because I know that's definitely something we've all been working through to some degrees. No, I love that, Anders. So, Anders, there's so much more value you offer to the world. I know you've got obviously your company, the services you're giving, the resources you're giving. Where can the listener find you if they want to reach out, grab some more of your resources, know how they can work with you or your team? And is there maybe a final point you want to leave us with today?
Let's start with the point first. The point is that there's nothing outside of you that is more powerful than the power inside of you to change it. And it's not who we are that holds us back at the core, because there is infinite potential within us. What is holding most people back are all the illusions of who we think we're not. That's holding most people back. Now, the world has never cried for more quote unquote free giveaways and downloads and stuff. I'm not a believer in that, really. I'm a believer in giving away tangible tools that actually work. And that's what we put together, a completely free kit that will help a person get very clear on what they want. It comes with 13 tips from Bob Proctor and I to get clear on what we want. It comes with a goal card process to integrate the goal. It also comes with a priming exercise that I've used myself to attract Bob back then and many other goals in my life, where we help you understand what it means to prime your mind and central nervous system to be in harmony with that goal. And we coupled that with the first lesson of the program that Bob and I co-created called The Secret to Real Magic. That bundle is completely free of charge. We'll give it away to anybody that wants it because it will give them a great start. And with that comes an assessment, a test you can take to actually identify which of the 5 biggest mental illusions that's currently holding you back. Because there's 5 big ones, and the test will reveal to you which of the 5 is the most predominant in your life right now. So we help you get clear on what's currently blocking you, and then we get clear on what you want and how to prime yourself to get there. And that is completely free. You can just download it. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram and download that illusion breaking self-assessment and the magic mindset blueprint. Go to Real Anders Hansen. It's just Real Anders Hansen in one word. So RealAndersHansen on Facebook or Instagram. And we actually created just for your listeners, Johnny, where they just have to put in the word self-esteem in one of our posts, and they're sent that kit completely free and no strings attached.
Oh, amazing. We appreciate that, Anders. That's massively appreciated. So thank you, and thank you for everything you've shared today. And for the listener, you can find the links and information to all those linked in the show notes below. So once again, Anders, a massive thank you.
I appreciate you, Johnny.
Thank you. So that concludes today's episode, and remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.